Okay, this is where we have it wired up. Gonna put the motor controller in it. Now, when I put it together, I forgot to put the wires on over here. The three wires. The plus, the ground, and the 5 volt. So I had to take the 4 bolts out and lift this up and just attach them and then just put it back down. But anyway, they're in there now, and I folded them inside this mount, and they go into this center part, and then the two wires are going to come out this piece here, and then the white one I got as the 5 volt that's going to go into the motor controller. So the motor controller just, you remember I got the cutouts on the heat shield, and what I did with that was I figured out it was 140 from the end, so I come in 140 in the middle of the part, and put a 5/8 counter bore in there. And I moved it over 1-inch 122. Did the same thing on this side, and then moved it over the 1-inch 109, and then 1-inch 109 on this side. Of course, that only leaves a partial. It's not a full circle. But that's this here. So what this does, this just slips into here, and it just rests like that. And then you put the 4 screws in it, and there's a little slop on the back because you need it to slip in there, between this the top of this part and the bottom of this piece. There's a little slop in there because it doesn't have to be tight. All it's got to do is just hold it in place. The wires are basically going to keep it from moving around, so that just fits in there. Then I got this piece that holds that round thing, and it goes in that hole there. But I'll put that in there later. But the all these wires here need to be pushed down because the Arduino gets pushed down on top of it, and this this plug it actually goes right there, and it's actually in the way of the wires because there's like no room when you push these down, and that plug is right on top of them. So that plug is I guess for external power supply, which I'm not using, so I decided to go ahead and remove it. So what I did was, you could probably desolder it if you had one of those vacuum things that take the solder away. But I didn't have one, so the lugs went through the board, so I ground the lugs down flush with the board, What I was trying to do was trying to eliminate as much of the solder as possible, because my goal was to heat the solder up and try to pull that piece out. But I knew that there would be excess solder in these holes and it would not be too easy. So I was able to, I mean, I didn't want to destroy it, but I was able to remove, I got this one loose and I kind of bent it, and then I had to work these two, had to heat one, heat the other, heat one, heat the other, and try to bend it even more. And I finally got to the point where it actually came off without destroying really anything. Now this is what it looks like. See, it's a oblong slot where they put it into, and there's still solder in there. I couldn't get it all out, and there were little tiny points from the solder, so I just put the heat gun on there and just melted the solder flush with the top of the surface, because that's where the wires are, and I didn't want the points cutting into the covering on the wire. So that's going to create a good little channel for that wire to go through without it hitting this external power supply jack. So now before I talked about the switch mount that mounts up on top. This was my original one, and it was just a cutout for the rocker switch and two mounting holes. Now, when I put the switch in there, of course I couldn't get it to fit, because the corners, you know, when you run an end mill in there, it leaves a radius in the corner. So I ended up digging out the corners, and I was a little brutal with it. So it has some pretty good corners in there. In fact, they were a little too big, but I figured I'd put a little black sealant in there to kind of cover them up a little bit. But I ended up making another one anyway. So what I did this time was I pre-drilled them before I put the end mill in there, and that worked out pretty good. Then I just took a little file and I cleaned out the little lip that was on there. I don't know why this thing's not focusing. Anyway, you can see it's a lot better. So like I said, the second one I added the little hole on the end for the reset button. This little guy right here. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and plug the Arduino onto it, and then finish wiring up the motor controller, and probably be a good idea to test it out before we go too much further. It wouldn't take much to put the power supply on it and throw a couple jumpers on it and see if it get it to work. That way, if there's a problem, we can fix it now instead of later. So that's where we are now, and we'll see where we get. All right, bye.